Okay, going to go ahead and read the poem again. Because I know you guys love this thing so much. I just want you to get as much of it as you can. Um, I went to turn the grass once after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun. The dew was gone that made his blade so keen before I came to view the leveled scene. I looked for him behind an aisle of trees. I listened for his whetstone on the breeze. But he had gone away, the grass all mowed, and I must be as he had been alone. As all must be, I said within my heart, whether they work together or apart. But as I said it, swift there passed me by, on noiseless wing, a bewildered butterfly, seeking with memories grown dim overnight some resting flower of yesterday's delight. And once I marked his flight go round and round, as where some flower lay withering on the ground. And then he flew as far as I could see, and then on tremulous wing came back to me. I thought of questions that have no reply, and would have turned to toss the grass to dry. But he turned first, and led my eye to look at a tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. A leaping tongue of bloom the scythe had spared, beside a reedy brook the scythe had bared. All right, so we talked about how, there's this, the butterfly comes back and turns towards this tuft of flowers, and because the butterfly turns first, and we talked about the importance of that. He follows and watches the butterfly, and he sees the tuft of flowers because he is looks and follows the butterfly. All right. Now the first thing I just want to mention is that there's this tuft of flowers is kind of special, and we got to look at like what's going on with this tuft of flowers. First of all, he says something real simple. He says that there was, but the butterfly turned first and led my eye to look at a tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. Well, the first thing is that usually when you're talking about a tuft of flowers, it's usually short. That's why he calls them tall. So he wants to emphasize that this is really kind of a magnificent tuft of flowers. It's tall. It's a leaping tongue. Of bloom. Right. So the first thing description is he says it's tall, and that's important because, as I just got done saying, typically the tufts of flowers are short. Typically they're short. They're not like these tall things. So what he's emphasizing is how vigorous and kind of beautiful this tuft of flowers is. It's just not an everyday ordinary tuft of flowers. It's like a tall one. It's filled with life. Okay. Filled with life. Filled with life. All right. A tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. A leaping tongue of bloom. The scythe had spared. Beside a reedy brook, the scythe had bared. All right. Well, another thing that see one of the things that's important is it seems like there's this field, right? And this guy's mowing this field. He's mowing down the hay, right? And he gets over towards this, it's like an edge of the field, like the perimeter. And the reason we know that is because, there's a brook there. There's this brook. So the brook represents an edge because, that's where the hayfield ends, because there's this water, there's this, brook running through there. So on the other side is like this other parcel of land, right? Typically, these little waterways is what separate these parcels of land. So the point is that the guy is kind of getting to the end of his work, see, because he's got the edge here. It's like the end of the mowing. And notice he says that this tuft of flowers, a leaping tongue of bloom, the scythe had spared. Beside a reedy brook, the scythe had bared. So what that means is that it seems to be saying that because he's cutting down this grass, this hay, that exposes, now that exposes this brook that maybe he didn't, wasn't absolutely sure that it was there. In other words, because it says that the reedy brook, the scythe had bared it. It made it. It revealed his cutting. His cutting revealed the brook. All right, because he says, the scythe had bared. It bared it. It made it so you could see it. Now, the reason this is important is because we have to take seriously the fact that this guy's like getting to the end of his work. See, he's he's almost done. It's like when you're at the end of a class and it's like, oh my God, this class is almost over. I can't wait. So he's getting to the end of his work, the end of the mowing. It's like, okay, I've reached my edge here. I'm done. The end of the work. So why is this important? Well, because when you have a hard job to do and it's like this kind of task, he's been there he's been there before the sun comes up, and he's like, going crazy with this scythe, he's cutting down all this hay, and he's getting to the point where he's like, he's almost done, it's almost over. He can go home and get some breakfast or whatever, right? But what does he do? He doesn't, he gets to this edge where he's almost done, and there's this big blooming tuft of flowers, right? And what does he do? He spares it. He doesn't cut it down. He spares it, all right? A leaping tongue of bloom the scythe had spared. He leaves it. He spares it. All right, so he spares it. He doesn't destroy it. He leaves it. Now, why is this important? Well, guess what? At the very end of his work, he creates more work for himself, because now he has to cut all around the thing. If it's typically me and you, we got breakfast waiting for us. We're getting to the edge there. We're just chopping that baby down. We want to get home, right? No, what does this guy do? He creates more work for himself. He creates more work. He creates more work for himself. Now, the whole real meaning of the poem is found in the question, why? Why does he spare them? Why does he create more work for himself? You know, why would he do that? Why would he make, at the end of his day, at the end of this labor, why would he choose to create more labor? Why? Why does he create more work for himself? All right. Now, before we answer that question, well, let me just, I'm going to go, hold on. Let me pause for a second. Okay, so what we're asking now is, why would the mower spare this tuft of flowers? You know, why? Why does he spare them? Now look, I'm just going to give you a little example here what's going on. Imagine you're in this class. It's like, you know, these classes are long now, like 50 minutes long. And you've been taking notes and you've been listening and paying attention. And it's like the class is over and you're just like, man, you can't wait to get out of there. And guess what? It's like the end of the day. You get to go home now. And what do? After class is over, you go up and start asking the teacher more questions because you want to understand more. You want to go further. That's what this guy does, okay? Instead of doing something where he can just leave and go relax, he makes it harder on himself, all right? I'll just give you an example of that. He makes it harder on himself. He doesn't, you know, he has to chop around the flowers. All right. Now, this ultimate question of like, why does he spare them? That's really like at the heart of the whole poem. And I'm not gonna. There's like a real deeper answer to this question that we're not ready to totally talk about yet. But let's talk a little bit about what Frost does tell us at this point. How he describes the flowers. Okay, he says, a leaping tongue of bloom. All right, a leaping tongue of bloom. A leaping tongue of bloom. A leaping tongue of bloom, the scythe had spared. All right, so first of all, this thing is like leap. It's literally jumping up into the air. Okay, it's like this thing it's this tuft of flowers that's just filled with vigor and health and beauty. All right, it's this magnificent kind of clump of flowers. Okay, it's magnificent. All right, it's like, you know, you look up the word leaping and it says, you know, jumping from the ground, bounding upwards. It's bounding up and towards the sun. You know, it's like this thing that's fully alive. Bounding upward. Fully alive. You know, okay, so then he describes it as, you know, this leaping tongue of bloom, right? Leaping tongue. And, you know, the tongue is like the thing that's like, is the thing that tastes the world, right? It's like this thing is like this tuft of flowers, like it's like tasting the world. You know, it's filled with vigor. You know, it's tasting the existence, right? A leaping tongue of bloom. It's It's like it's speaking to the world. It's like you know, it's just completely you know, almost like it's just going to sound a little weird, but it's kind of like, licking existence in some sense. It's just like, filled with vitality and life, uh, a leaping tongue of bloom. Now, bloom means it's in flower, okay? It's flowering. So when a plant is in bloom, it's like it's at its height of its vigor, all right? So this is, like I said, this magnificent specimen of this tuft of flowers, right? So it's blooming means that it's the time of vigor for the plant. Time of vigor. All right, freshness, beauty. See, all the things that are opposed to what was originally happening in the poem, death and destruction, right? This is the opposite. This is completely the opposite of death and destruction. Opposite of death and destruction. Life. Opposite of death and destruction. All right. It's like it's like this glowing tuft of flowers. Glowing. It's glowing with life. Now, so you could say, well, the reason he spares it is it's just so damn beautiful, He just can't. It's like, I can't kill this thing. It's just like, look at it. It's magnificent. It would be, I would be like I would have to be a dog. Would be like something sinister in me to chop this thing down. It deserves to live. Its beauty is calling forth, a reverence. It demands my reverence. It demands my reverence. Reverence means deep respect. Deep respect. It demands my reverence. So it's kind of like the example I gave of the student that stays after to talk to the teacher, even though he could go home and eat some dinner or eat lunch. He has this sense that his further question, his stay after school and ask the further question, it demands respect. That question demands to be asked. He's gonna give reverence to the question. Well, here this mower is giving reverence to the beauty of this thing because it's just so magnificent. He can't chop it down, even though it's going to like cost him something, right? It cost him something to leave it because now he's got to do more work. All right, we'll go from there. Now, I do want to mention the reason the mower spares the tuft of flowers is just magnificent in its beauty. That's not the primary reason he spares them. There's another reason that's even it's kind of like even more profound in some sense. But we're not ready to talk about that yet. But it has to do with the beauty. Okay.